The first time I asked my best friend to check on my wife, I told myself it was what a good husband and a good friend would do. Nights were my territory. I run inventory at a distribution center, clocks and forklifts for company, so the house was quiet except for the little anxious spirals my wife would get into after sunset. Let's call her Mara. And my best friend, the guy who has known me since we were 19 and broke in the same dorm, let's call him Ethan. Mara's anxiety wasn't new. Since her mom's surgery last year, the edges of every day felt sharper to her. She'd pace, check the stove twice, keep the hallway light on just in case. We tried therapy, breathing apps, walks after dinner. Some nights helped, some didn't. When my schedule shifted to overnights for the holiday rush, the compromise we landed on was simple. If she had a bad night, Ethan would swing by, bring tea, put a game on, just be a steady presence. He lives 8 streets over. It felt harmless. It felt smart. The first week, it worked. I'd text, "You good?" on my midnight break and get back a photo, chamomile steam, her fuzzy socks, the TV volume low. Ethan would drop a thumbs up in the group chat we shared with a few other friends, Sunday crew, jokes, memes, gentle ribbing, comfortable, familiar. Then the chat got quieter, and not because life got busy. In Sunday crew, conversation would stop right when I knew he'd walked over. Hours later, Mara would mention something funny he said, and I'd scroll back to find no trace of it. Little things. I told myself they were nothing. Friends can have side conversations. Married couples can be friends with other people. The thought felt like a test, and I chose to pass it by not taking it. On my nights off, I tried to make home feel normal again. I'd cook nothing fancy, but the kind of food you can eat with a blanket on your knees, tomato soup, grilled cheese, the smell of butter settling into the curtains. Mara would relax, shoulders dropping from her ears, and apologize for being a lot. I'd kiss her forehead and tell her she wasn't. It's funny how quick you can forgive a person for needing you when you need to be needed. One Tuesday, around 10 p.m., Ethan texted me privately. She sounded a little spun up. "Want me to check in?" I said yes. By then the routine had its own momentum. I imagined him on the porch we still hadn't finished painting, knocking the way he always did, 2 fast, 1 slow. I imagined Mara's face easing when she opened the door. My chest warmed with relief and an odd little pinch I couldn't name. I put the phone back in my pocket and focused on pallet counts, on the fact that care is a team sport. Red flags rarely arrive with sirens. They slip in like drafts, the kind you only notice when a door slams. A neighbor waved at me in the grocery store that weekend. Let's call her Mrs. Alvarez, retired, knows every dog on the block, and said, "Saw your friend leaving late the other night." Sweet of him. You two are lucky to have each other. I smiled, agreed, told myself lucky was the right word. Mara started sleeping with the bedroom lamp on. She said the shadows felt less like shadows that way. I offered to switch to days. She said we needed the shift differential for a few months. She was right. We were saving for a car that didn't rattle at stoplights. The math felt like a promise. Just a little longer and the road smooths out. Somewhere in all that practicality, schedules, lamps, budgets, I stopped listening to the tap-tap in my ribs that usually keeps me out of trouble. I replaced it with numbers. The house was tidy, the texts were polite, and the tea tins lined up like a quiet applause. What does trust sound like when you train yourself not to hear anything else? Weekends started collecting errands like lint. A quick hardware store run for porch paint turned into a running bit between Mara and Ethan about who's worse at choosing blue. I'd hear it secondhand when I got home, the punchline perfectly polished, the setup missing me entirely. In Sunday crew, the jokes went vague. You had to be there, and I wasn't. I tried a gentle course correction first. Over breakfast I said, "If Ethan swings by, loop me in." Even a heads-up text helps me feel part of the fix, not the furniture. Mara squeezed my hand and said, "Of course," like I'd asked for water. That night, Ethan messaged that he might check on her if she gets spirally. I thanked him and added, "Shoot the message in the group chat so I can keep track when I'm counting pallets." He reacted with a thumbs up. I couldn't decipher agreement or end of discussion. The apartment started carrying echoes of evenings I didn't attend, throws folded differently, 2 mugs drying by the sink, tea rings like faded moons. Once a lemon sugar smell hung in the air that wasn't our detergent. Mara shrugged and said Ethan brought pastries, no big deal. Not a crime. Not even a misdemeanor. Just a detail that didn't have me in it. Then we had our first real boundary talk. I made a list, calm, no italics, keep chats in the group unless it's an emergency, no one-on-one outings that look like dates, no late-night closed-door hangouts, and if he comes by after 10, porch light on, and a text to me, he's here. I didn't ask her to stop needing help. I asked to stop feeling like a ghost in my own house. Mara blinked, slow like I'd suggested a curfew. "You're making this heavy," she said. "He's just being kind." I told her I was trying to be kind to future us. She kissed my cheek, called me steady, the compliment that always quieted me. Ethan texted later, "Man, I get it, but she's been anxious. I'm not trying to be a problem. I wrote back, then don't be one. After that, I started tracking facts, not feelings, facts. Time-stamped doorbell alerts, transaction logs from our joint account, bakery, pharmacy, hardware, calendar entries on my phone for when she said he'd come by and when the porch cam actually caught him leaving. I wrote entries like a shipping manifest. Date/who initiated. Duration, why. Documentation turns fog into shapes. It also makes you lonelier, because each shape has edges that cut. One Tuesday, the warehouse lost power halfway through my shift. I drove home with the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. The living room lamp was on. The TV menu idled on continue watching, romantic comedies. 2 cereal bowls in the sink. Mara, in my hoodie, sleepy. You're early, she said, soft as a question. I asked how her night was. Fine. Ethan dropped by for like 10 minutes. The doorbell log said 42. I didn't accuse. I learned the shape of my voice when I cared about being right more than being loud. 42 minutes, I said, non-violent. Like weather. She frowned. Are you timing my comfort now? I said I was timing my absence. She left the kitchen without answering. I reached out to my sister, 2 states away, honest like salt. She said, you're not crazy. You're careful. Careful's good. But don't live in detective mode. Give her one more clear ask. So I did. I suggested couples therapy. She said her schedule was packed. I offered to swap to day shift sooner. She said we needed the pay bump. I asked for a weekend just us. No drop-ins, no inside jokes. And she agreed. Then canceled for a volunteer event Ethan happened to be at. The next grocery run, Mrs. Alvarez asked how the 3 of us were doing, the way people who witness things they don't fully understand sometimes do. I laughed it off and bought lemons I didn't need. That night, I opened a new note on my phone labeled Ledger and added the volunteer flyer I found in our recycling. Date, time, location. Some men rage to get control back. I counted. Here's what counting taught me. When kindness asks to be invisible, it's often trying to be something else. If this is landing with you, tap like and subscribe so more people find it. It was Mrs. Alvarez who knocked the first clean crack into my denial. Sunday morning, her canvas tote full of oranges, she said, I like that little theater on Maple. I saw Mara there Tuesday. Such a sweet place for couples. She wasn't prying. She was offering neighborly warmth, but the sentence landed with coordinates. Tuesday, Maple, couple. I went home and opened the ledger. Tuesday had a bakery charge at 6:12 p.m. The doorbell cam showed Ethan arriving at 6:34 and both of them leaving at 7:02. My shift ran 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. The porch cam caught them returning just before 11, laughing, the kind of loose shoulders I hadn't seen on her in weeks. Facts, not feelings. I texted Ethan first. How was your Tuesday? He wrote back. Jim. Crashed early. My fingers hovered over the screen. I typed, erased, typed again, settled on. Our neighbor mentioned Maple. 3 dots pulsed, stopped, pulsed again. Oh right, we grabbed a movie to get her out of the house. She was spiraling. He finally wrote. You didn't mention it. I answered. Didn't want to bother you at work. That night, the second crack came from a place I wasn't expecting. A mutual friend from Sunday Crew. Jules sent me a screenshot. This popped up on Ethan's story and disappeared a minute later. Weird? It was a photo of 2 ticket stubs on a knee. The caption, worth the risk, with a blue heart. In the corner of the stub, a little doodled M. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was a postcard from a line I had drawn and they had stepped over. The last piece didn't come from a friend or a camera. It came from my own kitchen table. Ethan had helped me carry in a used mini freezer the week before and left his tablet in my trunk. I brought it in to return. When I set it down, the lock screen lit up with a message preview that needed no guessing. Mara, can't stop thinking about the movie and the parking lot. Lemon sugar still on my lips. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. A preview is not a hack. It's a mirror someone forgot to turn over. I gave myself 24 hours. I showered, shaved, changed the sheets. Pointless rituals I used to do before exams. Then I asked Ethan to meet me at the park where we've shot hoops since before our knees complained. He brought 2 coffees, and his old grin, the one that used to feel like home. I laid the manila envelope on the bench, the screenshot of the tickets, the porch cam timestamps, a printout of the bakery charge, a note with Mrs. Alvarez's timeline in my handwriting so I wouldn't embellish. I'm not here to perform, I said. I'm here to be precise. He looked at the photos, and then at the sky as if answers lived in leaves. We didn't plan it, he said. She was scared. It just comfort that hides itself isn't comfort, I said, hearing my own voice steady. It's cover. He rubbed his jaw. I wanted to tell you. You wanted me not to know. We both sat with that. He nodded. Once. Small but honest. I told him I was done being friends. He asked if there was anything he could do. Yes, I said, stop texting her. Today. I came home to Mara at the kitchen island, a tab open for lemon bars. I almost laughed at the neatness of it. I used the same envelope, the same order. Her eyes scanned each page, and I watched denial give way to calculation, and then to something softer, remorse or relief. I couldn't tell. I felt alone, she said finally. You were always gone.
He understood. I offered therapy. I said I offered days. I offered weekends. She swallowed. I tried to end it after the movie. Her hand rested on the counter, no ring tapping, just skin on stone. Then the next night felt easier with him again. Because secrets always feel easier, I said, until they don't. I told her I was filing. Not out of fury, but out of math. A marriage with two sets of rules collapses under its own weight. She cried quietly. I didn't narrate her tears into a reason to stay. By the end of the week, Sunday crew fractured into careful silences. 2 people texted me no sides, just love, which is a side with nicer wallpaper. One called to say he'd suspected something, and was sorry for not saying. I moved into the guest room, and purchased a simple black binder for the paperwork, with a label I could stand to look at. Dissolution, documents, no flames, no announcements, no revenge beyond the boundary itself. Just steps.
The week I filed, the house sounded different, not quieter, truer, drawers closed with their own small honesty. The porch light, the one I'd turned into a kind of lighthouse for comings and goings, became just a bulb again. I told Mara I'd move to my sister's for a while. My sister offered me her guest room and a stack of practical advice that only siblings can give without it feeling like a lecture. I packed methodically. Work boots, 3 shirts, a binder labeled dissolution documents, and the ledger I'd built when I didn't trust my own chest to speak. We agreed to mediation. No one wanted a spectacle. The mediator's office was all neutral paint and careful pauses. We went line by line. Car, savings, the lease, the dog we'd almost adopted but never did. There was no shouting. That surprised me. Sometimes the most final things happen at reasonable volume. Mara apologized in that room. Real sorrow, not the kind that's bargaining for a lighter outcome. I said I believed she was sorry, and that I needed something different than sorry to build a life on. We signed papers that felt like the end of a long winter. I sent Ethan one last message. No contact. Ever. He replied, understood. That was the last time I read his name on my screen. Sunday crew split into 3 camps. Those who called, those who texted platitudes, and those who slipped into silence. I curated my circle the way you clean a wound. Firm, careful, with the goal of healing more than hurting. I left the group chat, muted anyone who wanted the drama without the truth, and thanked Jules and Mrs. Alvarez for saying the simple things that mattered when everything else felt complicated. In the practical column, I swapped to day shift. The pay drop slowed our savings goals, but I didn't need a new car right away, as much as I needed mornings that didn't feel like I was coming home to a quiz I hadn't studied for. I joined a Saturday run club I'd driven past 100 times. The first week I ran badly and slept well. 2 weeks later, I said yes to burgers with 3 strangers who argued about the best neighborhood taco stand with the intensity people usually reserve for politics. New community doesn't arrive like a parade, it grows like ivy, quiet, persistent, finding places to hold. I kept the ledger for a month after the papers were final, not to relive anything but to prove to myself I didn't need it anymore. Then I printed the last page, wrote done at the bottom, and put it away. Documentation saved my sanity when the story tried to gaslight me. Letting it go saved me from living inside the worst chapter. Several times I walked past the theater on Maple on purpose, not to punish myself, to teach my feet that a place doesn't own me. One afternoon I bought a ticket, sat in the back and watched a comedy that wasn't great but had a line that stuck. You can't edit a scene by shouting at it. When the credits rolled, I didn't look around for anyone. I just left through the lobby and into air that smelled like oranges. Mrs. Alvarez must have been somewhere close doing her citrus rounds. Mara sent a short note 3 months later. She'd started counseling, was moving closer to her mom, wished me peace. I wished her peace back. That door closed with dignity. I didn't need to reopen it to check if it was still closed. Here's what I learned. Kindness that needs shadows is rarely kindness. Boundaries aren't ultimatums, they're weather reports. Patterns speak louder than apologies. If you're building a life with someone, use the same map, and if your map keeps getting swapped out mid-drive, pull over. Protect your circle the way you protect your body. Both carry you where you're going. If my story helped you hold your own line, subscribe. I've got more truths to share.